Hi, I'm Coco Good, Director of Communications and Marketing for the City of McKinney, back with City Manager Paul Grimes. Thanks for being back to join us at your 1 year, slightly over 1 year mark with the city.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So you've been here a little over a year. It's a big milestone. I know you've had lots of projects you've been working on, lots of things you've been connected to. What really stands out to you in the last year in terms of accomplishments?
Boy, we've had a busy year, I can tell you that. I would say some of our economic development projects stand out. The Independent Bank deal for the new expanded corporate headquarters are going to locate to the Craig Ranch area. It's about a $50 million project, hundreds of new employees as they grow, which is great. That's very exciting. There's a couple of other milestones that I would point out that may not be on your viewers' minds, but I think it's important to point those out. I would say we got reaffirmed our AAA credit rating, but not only from Standard & Poor's did we get reaffirmed, but we also earned AAA from Moody's. So we actually have two credit rating agencies. Moody's had proven elusive for a while, but they now have recognized the City of McKinney as a AAA rated community, which is great because that, of course, having a high credit rating keeps our borrowing costs lower, and that saves money for the taxpayers for projects in which we may borrow. I would say our 5-star rating by the Texas Comptroller for financial transparency is kind of a big deal. We were the first state, or the first city in the state, to get recognized with a 5-star rating. So I think your viewers can take solace or be pleased with that in terms of our organization, because that shows that we are trying our best to adhere to the highest standards of financial transparency. There's always work to do, and it's kind of an evolving thing, so we will always strive for better, but we should be proud as a community that we do try to be as open and transparent with public financial information as possible. So those to me stand out as kind of a big deal.
That's fantastic. Now, we've also been through a major election since you've been here. So 4 new council members, including a new mayor. How has that affected things? I
should have pointed out that might be the biggest milestone over the past year, the small matter of an election. It's gone very well. We have, when you have new council members, you typically want to spend a lot of time with them, getting them onboarded or oriented to a number of the things that happen throughout the city. And that's exactly what we did. We put together 6 half-day sessions for our 4 new council members, the 3 council members plus the mayor, to update them on all different aspects of the city operations and the operating departments and what's happening and why certain things are happening in a certain way or whatever. And I think it was very informative for them. It's always good for me because even though I'm still new here, I continue to learn. But it does help them govern, right? It helps you govern when you have good information so that you make informed policy choices. So their job is to make those policy choices, and a new council is going to come in with their own ideas, and they campaigned on certain ideas. Our job is to make sure they have good information with which to make informed decisions on behalf of the community. So that was a big one. An election, that is our bread and butter. That's what we work in, right? The elected officials are our board of directors. And 4 of the 7, changing that over is a big deal because that's a majority, et cetera. And we had 3 council members termed off. They reached their term limits from before. That's 20 or 18 years of experience. And then 24 years. And then we lost a council member who ran for election as mayor, and Mayor Fuller defeated him. But that's another 4 years. So we had 28 years of experience that is lost off the dais.
Sure.
And so there are lots of things that the new council has to be apprised of that we take for granted, I suppose, as staff. So we have to make sure that we get them the information and they understand why certain things have been done a certain way. They can change course, they can certainly give us different direction, but it's important to give them a baseline to start with.
Sure, and they jumped in right in the middle of the budget process. No more fun time,
that's just
right?
it. They were in the middle of a budget process, and they did a great job. I mean, that's an awful lot of information for a city of our size with all the things happening, all the activities, and the budget growing like it is and the community growing. For them to jump in like they did was really a great thing to see, and they've been great to work with.
So how was this year's budget process different than years past? Is more public input opportunities? I know was a real focus, but just in terms of what was eventually adopted, what did you see change?
So a 2-part question. First, the process. The process, we tried to be a little bit more open earlier. We had a public hearing in April, or public input session, I suppose. is the right term. Then we have the public hearings later in the budget process. We have a new vendor, as you know, Peak Democracy, which works with the city on involving or engaging the community. It's kind of a virtual town hall, so we allowed folks for about a 6-week period to weigh in on their priorities. We actually had a little budget exercise, as you know, to allow them to say if you had $20 or whatever it is, I think there were dots, and where would you put those? Where would the priorities be? And people learn real quickly that it's not so easy when you have all these different competing demands in a budget. But I think involving the community in that, in those steps of the process earlier has gone over fairly well. And there are still some who want us to do different things with the budget, and I understand that, but certainly having that community involvement early is important. The other part of the question is what has changed. I would say that it's more steady as you go than a change, but there are some changes. So our budget's a little bigger, which is not surprisingly, we're a bigger community. We went from a $127 million general fund operating budget to a $137 million budget. We have a significant tax rate reduction of 3.2 cents. So that is kind of a nice thing. So we were able to lower the tax rate to basically to be effective rate plus 1.92%, which is basically the rate of inflation, and still be able to generate more revenue because our tax base is growing. And with a growing tax base, more households, more businesses, we all can carry a little bit less water because you got more people bearing that burden, if you will. I think the priorities in the budget that this new council has set is to focus on development services, making it as easy as possible and as customer friendly as possible for businesses and development to occur in McKinney. We are the third fastest growing city in America, which is quite a milestone, but that means things are fast and furious, and we are spending an awful lot of resources and time to try to improve our processes. But we got 8 new positions in development services, really to focus on dealing with that kind of growth.
And so you talked about economic development. You mentioned a little bit earlier some of the announcements we've made in terms of independent bank coming and things like that. Talk to us about the economic development landscape, what's coming, so to speak. The Economic Development Corporation has a strategic plan that they've launched. You're beefing up development services to make the process as easy as possible. The airport is growing. Just, it's hard to do that in a nutshell, but in a nutshell,
well,
where are we going?
I'll touch on a couple of other economic development projects that are really important for the community. So Independent Bank, of course, we talked about. PACCAR Corporation. PACCAR Corporation is the parent company for Peterbilt trucks, Kenworth and Peterbilt semi-trucks. And they are building a new greenfield, we call it in the industry, a greenfield manufacturing plant for their Dynacraft division, which is an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer supplier to the PACCAR manufacturing operation assembly plant in Denton. And so by having that facility here, that will offload some of the things they're doing in the assembly plant to free it up for more assembly operation, and they'll manufacture some of those subcomponents here in McKinney. And so those are great manufacturing jobs, and we need those in a community. We also have the other major project I'd point to is the resort project in Craig Ranch. So that's a $98 million luxury resort project that is going to be coming forward. They'll probably start construction in the first or second quarter of 2018. That will be a really nice product, the only one of its kind at this point in the North Collin County or the Collin County region. Most of the hotels around here are standard business class hotels. This will be a resort facility located next to the TPC golf course in Craig Ranch. And that's a very exciting project. And then the other one, which I think is very cool, is downtown, the Playful Corporation.
Right.
Playful Corporation's worldwide headquarters will be in McKinney. They're here now. They're expanding and growing. They develop the augmented reality software for the visors that we wear. I don't wear them, but someday I'll maybe get to. But it's a really cutting-edge technology, and they've chosen to keep McKinney as their home and build a brand new headquarters downtown, right down in the town square on Davis Street next to Chestnut Commons. So we're very excited about that. That's a big deal, and we're happy about it.
And those types of economic development initiatives will, A, bring amenities and quality of life funding mechanisms and things like that. But those are the types of things long term that are going to keep that tax rate in check as well.
Keep the tax rate in check, growing that commercial portion of our tax base, which the council has made it very clear. Mayor Fuller and the city council has said we need to grow the commercial portion of our tax base. So we are making very concerted efforts organization-wide to do that. So that's very helpful. But the other thing is we have jobs and people with the skills, the technical skills that help beget additional jobs, right? So somebody may spin off and create their own software development company, and then they expand. And having that base of skills here, sort of the cluster mentality, if you will,
right.
the cluster approach, is really important for McKinney, and the quality of life and the uniqueness of downtown really gives them a great environment. So that is a really neat project, and I think they'll be very successful here.
That's great. So you're balancing building jobs, managing growth, quality of life, parks growth.
Right,
I mean, you
right.
name it, you're doing it. What are
Right.
the most important priorities going forward for the city?
Well, the quality of life is a big one. Maintaining that quality of life in a really furious pace of growth. Frisco and McKinney are number 2 and 3 in the country for growth. And I think the other city was a smaller community. On a percentage basis, they are the fastest growing city, but on a real dollar basis, I'm sure Frisco and McKinney are.
Sure.
But keeping that quality of life. So we have a $250 million master plan for parks development that the city council just adopted. So Mike Kowski, our new Parks and Rec director, has to come up with a plan on rolling out $250 million plus Parks and Recreation master plan. We have the city council put some additional money aside in our mid-year budget amendment to improve the maintenance of our existing facilities, because we've heard from the community, boy, we'd like to improve our existing baseball and soccer fields, for example. So we're doing that, street maintenance and all of those things most people don't see, but is critically important for the overall quality of life of the community. I'd say the airport is another really big area. So for the viewers, I think it's important to look at the airport from a standpoint of it's about a little over, the runway is a 7,000-foot runway, so that's about 1.33 miles, I suppose, 1.25 miles. If you had that length of roadway or street in your community, and you had hundreds of millions of dollars of investment along that street, and you had international business as well as business people from throughout the country coming to that street, spending money in your community, and you're dialed into the international marketplace with a customs facility, that's a pretty important main street to have. And I think that's the message for our community is the airport growth. We're in the process now of getting a new FBO terminal, fixed base operators, what FBO stands for. That's basically the services that you get on the airport facility, and that generates revenue. We're getting a new FBO terminal and a new hangar, a large hangar, because we can't build hangar space fast enough because we're leasing them out so quickly. All of that bodes very well for the community, and we want to continue to leverage that because that's a differentiator for McKinney as opposed to our competitive communities here in the area. Having that airport, that national airport, McKinney National, is a major, major asset, and that's very important for us, and that's going to be a big deal for the next couple of years. I should say the next decade,
yes,
in terms of growing it.
No doubt. And something I know you're very passionate about is making sure that the city of McKinney is a quality place to work, but even more importantly, that everyone's interactions with the city are filled with respect and a service-oriented approach, and I think that really ties into the values that have just been adopted in the city as well, and you've led that process. Yeah,
so for the viewers who don't really see how the organization runs, and nor would they necessarily have to know that, but I do think it's important for folks to understand that the workforce is changing. The workforce all around the world, frankly, but in the U.S. in particular, is changing because the nature of work is changing. And we're making a concerted effort organization-wide, and the City Council has been very supportive of this initiative, and that is to turn to a learning organization. We call leadership at all levels within our organization. That's so we can be a smarter and more nimble workforce that deals with a world in which complexity, volatility, uncertainty, and ambiguity are dealt with much more nimbly. We have to be more. We have to. Yes, but we have to have critical thinkers. We have to focus on relationships. We have to focus on understanding what people's needs are, rather than just what we call the cognitive thinking about how much you know. Right. It's not so much how much you know anymore, because the work with artificial intelligence and smart machines, they will always those machines, the technology will beat us every day when it comes to cognitive thinking. It won't be how much you can pull from your own database in our minds.
Right.
I would be very slow, by the way. It's what do you do with that information, and how do we put it to use for the good of the community, work more efficiently, work smarter, so that the community has, and so our cultural values are, the acronym is RISE, which is respect, integrity, service, and excellence. None of those words would surprise anybody, I suppose, in terms of organizational culture, but what the community needs to know is that our folks are, for maybe the first time in a long time, working with that unified set of core values on behalf of the community.
Excellent. Wow. Okay, I'm fired up. Looking back at the last year, looking forward to the next, I look forward to hearing more updates from you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. My pleasure.